From the MIT Sloan Management Review, I'm Michael Hopkins, and this is the Sustainability and Innovation interview series. And I'm very pleased to be joined today by Marvin Odom, the president of Shell Oil Company, who's going to speak with us about some of the experiences, the management challenges and opportunities and experiences Shell has had. Marvin, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Michael. The first thing that comes to my mind is the word transparency, right? Because I think the only way to approach the situation that we're in is for a company like Shell to be a complete open book in terms of what we do, how we do it, and we have to be able to stand up to the criticism and the benefits that we get from being that transparent. Now we try to do that by publishing, given the topic of sustainability, publishing a sustainability report every year. That goes into, if you take the time to look at this, and I would encourage anyone to do it, it's on our website, it's available to everybody. It goes into great detail about the performance of this company, environmental performance and otherwise. And I think ultimately for us as a company and then how we help drive the industry to a different place, that sort of transparency is what we have to do. I think the other things that are changing in this environment, and it's so important as you think back into how do we take sustainability into account in our business planning and our what we decide to invest in, is I wouldn't say we're surprised, but the timelines have changed, right? When you move into a new project now and you think about when I was an engineer back in the 80s working for this company, it was around the technical aspects, getting the permits involved, and then could you actually drill in this deep of water, and could you produce in this type of environment? That's still a big part of the equation, but it's maybe half of the equation. The other half of the equation is, what are the communities where you want to work? What do they think? And how involved are they? And so the shift from being a company where you basically look at the world and you say, trust me, I'm going to do it the right way, to now a company that deals with its stakeholders from the point of view of show me and involve me, make me part of this, and I'm going to be part of these decisions going forward, changes everything. It does raise our performance. It changes the way we think as a company. And so what I have to do as a company is we have to push the education and the thinking of our project managers, our project developers, to say, how do you take all of that into account? So when I look at an investment proposal now, it does cover the technical issues. It certainly covers the financial issues, but a large piece, fully half of that proposal deals with what I would call the non-technical risk, the social performance, the sustainability issues. How have those been taken into account? What are the headline issues? How are we dealing with them? How will we mitigate the risk associated with those? What's the cost of that, and how long does that take? The timeline of these projects now is largely driven by those social performance, sustainable development issues, as opposed to the technical and other commercial issues. Here's the real crux of this discussion, though, is it may extend the timeline from what we would presume or otherwise like to see. But the truth is, if you don't do this work the right way on the front end, you actually never get a good project. Right. It never works out in the long run. So you have to do this work up front. We want the best social performance from a competitive sense. We as a company understand commercial issues very well. We understand technical issues. And you can even take that a step beyond, and I think the initial thinking of developers in this company would be, well, we're going to provide some benefits because we're going to provide jobs. And we're going to provide some infrastructure and otherwise. And there was a time when that was probably good enough. But that's not it anymore. Right? The real question is, go into that community and understand where are their values and what do they value and how do they get benefits out of this project being there as well. And that changes the picture. So I think this arc of change for us right now is developing those skills on the front line of our business. So it doesn't necessarily solve the problem to have the leaders of the company thinking that way somewhat in a bubble. That has to translate all the way down to the front line, the people having the face-to-face conversations and how that works. So that we're still on that educational path, I would say. We did a significant thing in 2009, focusing on the recent piece, and that is we really dramatically reorganized this company. And interestingly, you know, reorganizations are typically around types of business, geographic issues, and otherwise. And one of the key drivers of our reorganization this time around was sustainability issues. And it was, how do we address those issues? And what we did was we took what was more of a mode of this company of having a centralized, very smart core group of experts that tried to drive sustainability around the company. And we said, that's not the way to do this. We need to put these skills on the front line, move these people to the project teams, develop other people like them so that we have enough. And that's where all this needs to happen, not in some centralized thought group, if you will. The financial crisis didn't drive any change in our view of sustainability or the money that we spend on sustainability. And I think it's this driver. We've seen it with safety in the company, where safety is a core value for people in Shell. And if it's not, you don't last very long in this company. And so we're seeing the same thing start to develop with sustainability issues. We want that as a core value. When I get out into the world, or I get into the media, or some of my public sessions, I get questions like, what's the oil price? What do you think the oil price will be in 6 months or a year? And how is that changing your business? And the truth is, it doesn't change my business at all, because we're looking over 10, 20, 30, 40, even 50 years. And to a degree, this is the same way. I mean, nobody predicted the size of the financial crisis we've had. Does it really change the direction of this business? No. Does it change cash management and other type things in a short-term picture? Yes. But again, one of the things we have to think about as a business is, in a world that has that type of variation and unusual happenings, how do we be successful over the long term? And the way I like to say it is, priorities. Sustainability is clearly a priority, but priorities change with conditions. They change with financial performance and maybe the economy and so forth, but core values don't. And that's the way I want people to think about this. You sort of lay it all out on a piece of paper of what are all the factors that you have to consider. So you got your technical, you have your commercial, and then, because we're still in a mindset of probably splitting those into 3 groups, you have your environmental and social performance aspects. And I think a structured way to think about that for somebody working through it is, what are all the risks that you can imagine? And then how do you mitigate those risks? And that often gets you into the right mind frame. And so when you build that list of risk, you can't do that in a bubble. You have to look externally to do that. And so, what's in my mind right now is Alaska, which is clearly a very controversial area for, offshore drilling and development in the Arctic. And so I as a project manager would need to be in Alaska with Alaskans on my team, if you will, with people that really understand what happens there, with real interaction with the indigenous people there, to say, what do you think the risks are? What are you worried about? And that better show up on your list. And then ultimately you'll come to the questions are, can I actually succeed in these mitigations? What do they cost me? How much time do they cost? And then you have to stand back and say, is it still a viable project? And sometimes it's not, and that's the hard part. Sometimes it's not a viable project.